Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going deep into the world of Precision BioSciences,
Precision BioSciences.
a company making some pretty big waves in gene editing,
Gene editing, yeah.
trying to rewrite the code of life, so to speak, to cure diseases
Wow.
we once thought were untreatable.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff.
We've got a breakdown of 20 key facts and investment considerations about the company.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that by the time you're done listening to this deep dive, you've got the insights you need to really understand Precision BioSciences.
Awesome.
So Precision BioSciences, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere, right? This story actually starts at Duke University,
Duke. Right?
where the founders were studying these really cool enzymes called homing endonucleases.
Homing endonucleases.
Think of them like tiny little scissors that can cut DNA.
Oh, interesting.
And they were particularly fascinated by one that was found in single-celled algae.
Algae, wow.
You never know where groundbreaking science is going to come from, right?
It's true, you never know.
And that origin story is actually a good sign, potentially, for investors.
Okay, why is that?
Because academic spin-offs like Precision
Okay.
often come with incredibly strong intellectual property rights.
Right.
And really advanced technology.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But of course, the trade-off is that all that research focus can mean higher initial costs
Not your cost.
for R&D.
Sure, yeah. Got to balance it out.
So from those algae enzymes, they developed their gene editing platform. It's called RCS.
RCS, okay.
And what's really neat about RCS is it's smaller than the more famous CRISPR.
Smaller, huh?
And you might be thinking, well, why does size matter?
Yeah, I am kind of wondering that.
Well, when you're talking about delivering these therapies inside the body, smaller is better.
Oh, like a little tiny package, almost like
Sure.
sneaking it in.
Sneaking it in.
I like that. That size advantage could be a real game changer
Oh, yeah.
in the gene editing world,
Huge.
which is already pretty competitive.
Very competitive.
But of course, what matters in the end is how it actually performs in the real world, right?
That's got to work.
It's got to work. We need to see some strong data from their clinical trials
Absolutely.
showing us how safe and effective ARCUS really is.
So it's not just about the potential.
Right.
It's about seeing those results.
Yeah, I hear ya.
So what are they actually doing with this technology? Well, their pipeline is really interesting because it's so diverse.
Diverse.
We're tackling cancer,
Uh-huh.
rare diseases,
Okay.
and even infectious diseases.
Wow, that's pretty ambitious.
It is, and that kind of diversification
Yeah.
can actually be a really good thing for investors
How so?
because it helps to spread the risk.
Okay.
If one project doesn't pan out,
Right.
another one might.
Makes sense.
But of course, it also means they have to manage a lot of different projects simultaneously.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tricky.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
So let's talk about their most advanced program. It's called PBCA 0191.
PBCAR 0191.
Catchy name.
Rolls right off the tongue.
It is. It's an allogeneic CAR T-cell therapy.
Okay, break that down for me.
Allogeneic means it's made from donor cells,
Donor cell, so not the patient's own.
not the patient's own cells. And that's what makes it off the shelf,
Right,
which
okay.
has the potential to be a lot faster and less expensive than personalized therapies.
So it's like a ready-made treatment?
Ready to go.
That's amazing. But it's still early days, right?
It is. We got to see how it plays out.
For sure.
Now, speaking of challenges, Precision did hit a bit of a roadblock back in 2021
Oh,
when the FDA put a clinical hold on PBCAR 0191
clinical hold. What happened?
after a patient death that was likely linked to neurotoxicity.
Neurotoxicity, that's serious.
It is. It's a reminder that these therapies, as powerful as they are,
Right?
they can also have some serious side effects.
Yeah, of course.
Precision did adjust their protocols,
Okay,
and the hold was eventually lifted.
good.
But it's definitely something to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Clinical holds aren't super unusual in this field.
Right.
But they do raise concerns that
Yeah.
investors need to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
So how a company responds to a setback like that is
Yeah.
really important.
It shows how they react.
Yeah. And in this case, they seem to have taken the necessary steps to address those safety issues.
So they're showing their commitment to patient safety.
Exactly.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about another part of their pipeline, PBGGEPH1.
PBGG-EPH1, okay.
This one's a gene editing therapy aimed at a rare genetic disorder. It's called Primary Hyperoxaluria Type 1, or PH1 for short.
PH1, all right. Sounds pretty niche.
It does, but it actually presents some pretty interesting opportunities for the company.
No, really? Why is that?
Well, focusing on rare diseases
Yeah.
Might not have that blockbuster appeal of something like a cancer drug.
Right, right.
But it can be a really smart strategy.
I see.
This program, because it targets a rare disease,
Yeah.
could qualify for what's called orphan drug status,
Orphan drug status.
which comes with some pretty big benefits.
Like what?
Tax breaks and market exclusivity.
Ooh, those are big.
If the therapy is successful,
Yeah.
this could be a very lucrative area for Precision.
So it's like finding a hidden treasure.
Exactly.
Sometimes those smaller markets can have the biggest rewards.
You got it.
And speaking of big rewards,
Yes.
we can't forget about their program aimed at curing chronic hepatitis B.
PBG GNE-HBV.
That's the one. Hepatitis B affects hundreds of millions of people around the world.
It's a huge problem.
It is. If they can develop a cure,
Yeah.
the impact would be massive.
It would be groundbreaking. And it's important to note that they're not doing this alone.
Oh, they have partners.
They've attracted some major partners,
Okay.
including giants like Servier, Gilead Sciences, even Novartis.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is. Partnering with those big players
Yeah.
not only lends credibility to what they're doing,
Sure.
but it also brings in much-needed funding and expertise.
Yeah, it's like having an all-star team backing you up.
Exactly.
But investors still need to watch for progress
Of course.
on those agreed-upon milestones.
Yes.
No partnership is a guarantee of success.
Right?
And those big pharma companies, they're looking for results.
They are.
So let's talk about the financial side of things.
Okay.
As of their last filings, Precision has over $100 million in cash on hand.
That's a pretty good cushion.
It is. They also raised $160 million through their IPO back in 2019.
Right.
But
Right.
we know that biotech companies, especially those without a product on the market yet,
Yeah.
they burn through cash quickly.
It's expensive.
It is. So keeping an eye on that burn rate
Yes.
and any potential need for future fundraising is essential.
Absolutely.
Gene editing stocks
Yeah,
can be very volatile.
they can.
They're influenced by things like clinical trial results,
Of course.
FDA decisions, even news from competitors.
It's a roller coaster.
It's a roller coaster ride, for sure.
With potentially big highs and lows.
Big highs and lows. Yeah.
Before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The competitive landscape
Yeah.
of gene editing.
It's getting crowded out there.
It is.
Lots of companies.
They've got ARCUS, which is really unique.
Right.
But they're not the only player.
Definitely not. Lots of other companies developing gene editing therapies.
Lots of approaches.
Different technology.
It's a fast-moving field.
Fast-moving for sure.
So investors really need to understand how Precision's technology stacks up
How do they compare?
against the competition.
Yeah. That's the key question.
So it's about differentiation.
Differentiation. Yeah.
What makes them stand out
What makes them unique?
from the crowd?
Right. What should investors be looking for?
What are the signs that Precision has a competitive edge?
Well, I think there are a few key things. First, efficacy.
Efficacy
How well does their platform actually work?
compared to other technologies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Then there's safety.
Safety, huge. Are their therapies any safer?
Then the competition.
Particularly when it comes to those potential side effects.
Right.
And then finally, cost.
Wow.
Can they develop and manufacture their therapies in a cost-effective way?
It's got to be affordable.
It does. It's about making those therapies accessible.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about having a great technology.
Right.
It's about translating that technology into real-world success.
It's got to work in the real world.
It does.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored their origins, their gene editing platform, their diverse pipeline,
Their partnerships.
their financials, even touched on the competitive landscape.
We've covered it all.
But I think it all boils down to one fundamental question.
Okay.
What's the potential impact of this technology on the world?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And honestly, at this point, we can only speculate.
It's true.
But if Precision,
Yeah.
or any company in this field for that matter, can successfully develop and commercialize these groundbreaking therapies,
Right.
the implications are huge.
They're huge.
We could be on the verge of a whole new era in medicine,
A new era in medicine.
where diseases that were once considered incurable become treatable
Wow.
or even preventable.
That's a future worth striving for.
Absolutely.
But for our listeners who are thinking, okay, this all sounds really amazing,
Yeah.
but how do I make sense of this from an investment perspective?
Right.
What are some of the key questions that they should be asking themselves?
Well, I think the first question is,
Yeah.
do you believe in the long-term potential of gene editing?
It's a big question.
It is a big question.
Okay.
This is a relatively young field.
Yeah.
There are a lot of unknowns.
Lots of unknowns.
The second question
Okay.
is, how comfortable are you with risk?
Because biotech,
Biotech investments are inherently risky.
very risky.
There's always the possibility of setbacks, delays, even complete failure.
It's part of the game.
It is. And then does Precision's approach align with your overall investment philosophy?
So do your research.
Do your research.
Don't just take our word for it.
No.
Dig into the company's filings, read those analyst reports, follow the news, talk to other investors.
Had as much information as you can.
The more informed you are,
Yeah,
the better equipped you'll be to make sound investment decisions.
absolutely. Knowledge is power,
It really is, especially when it comes to investing.
especially when it comes to investing.
So to sum up, Precision BioSciences.
Yeah,
It's a fascinating company,
it is.
powerful gene editing platform,
Yep.
ambitious pipeline,
Uh-huh.
strong financial backing,
They've got it all.
even got some big name partnerships.
For sure.
But like any investment in the biotech world, there are risks involved.
Always risks.
It's high stakes
High stakes.
with potentially huge rewards.
huge rewards.
But it's not for the faint of heart.
Not for the faint of heart. It's a roller coaster, but it's a roller coaster that could change the world.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
Exactly.
We'll be back in just a moment to discuss the key milestones to watch and what the future might hold for this innovative company.
Can't wait. So before the break, we were talking about the potential of Precision BioSciences.
Their potential to really shake things up
To shake things up, yeah.
in the world of medicine with this RRCUS gene editing platform.
That's right. It's a pretty powerful tool.
They've got some pretty big goals.
They do.
And we were talking about how they're not afraid of a challenge.
Not at all. When we talk about ambitious goals, their Hepatitis B program, PBGNEHBV, that definitely comes to mind.
Yeah, they're aiming for a cure for chronic hepatitis B,
A cure.
which affects millions
Yeah,
globally.
billions and millions
What are some of the things that we should be watching for?
with this program.
Yeah.
Well, the initiation of those phase 1 human trials.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. That's when the theoretical moves into the real world.
Right.
We'll start to see how well the therapy actually performs in people.
All right, because up until this point, it's mostly been in the lab,
Exactly.
lab studies.
Lots of promising data from lab studies, but
Got to see how it works in real patients.
yes, that's the critical step.
So phase 1 trials,
Huge.
a major milestone.
Absolutely.
What about PBCAR0191? That's their off-the-shelf CAR-RT therapy.
Right.
We talked about the clinical hold back in 2021.
Yeah, I remember.
What's the latest on that front?
So they have resumed the trial
Okay.
with some adjustments to their protocols, and we're all waiting to see more data
More data.
on both its effectiveness and its safety.
Right.
Remember, this type of CRT therapy, it's still pretty new,
Yeah.
so every piece of data we get, it just helps us understand its true potential.
They're putting together a puzzle.
A puzzle, I like that.
Each new piece of data
Yeah,
gives us a clearer picture.
exactly.
Speaking of new developments,
Yeah,
are there any other areas or diseases that they might be looking at?
I think they're definitely exploring, expanding into other genetic diseases.
Interesting.
Keep an eye out for what are called investigational new drug filings.
IND file.
IND filings, yeah.
What are those all about?
Well, it's essentially the first step
Okay.
in getting approval from the FDA
Okay.
to start testing a new therapy in humans.
That makes sense.
So those IND filings
Uh-huh.
can give us a pretty good indication of where a company's headed next.
So if we see an IND filing for, let's say, cystic fibrosis,
Right.
we know that they're probably starting to think about moving into that area.
Exactly. It's a good sign that they're at least exploring that as a possibility.
So there's a lot happening in their pipeline.
A lot.
Watching those clinical trial results
Yep.
and the regulatory milestones, those are going to be key.
Those are going to be key for sure.
Let's take a step back for a moment.
Okay.
What's the big picture here?
The big picture.
If you're trying to understand the potential of Precision BioSciences,
Right.
what are the key takeaways?
Well, I think what's really fascinating to me is that precision represents this convergence
Okay.
of cutting-edge science and this real pressing need in medicine.
Yeah.
They've got this unique gene editing platform,
RCUS.
RCUS, with that size advantage we talked about,
Right.
that makes it well-suited for delivering therapies inside the body.
It can get where it needs to go.
Exactly. They're going after some of the most challenging diseases out there, cancer, rare genetic disorders,
Hepatitis B.
aiming for a cure for hepatitis B, and they've managed to bring on some of the biggest names
The biggest names in
in the pharmaceutical industry.
As partners.
As partners, it's a pretty compelling combination.
It sounds like they have a lot of the pieces in place
They do.
for a successful story.
They do,
Yeah.
but, as we discussed earlier,
There's always a but.
there are risks involved.
There are.
Developing and bringing new therapies to market.
Yeah,
It's a long and challenging process.
it is.
Clinical trials can fail.
They can.
Unexpected side effects.
Right.
The regulatory landscape can change quickly.
It's a moving target.
It is, and we can't forget about the competition.
The competition.
Other companies are also working towards similar goals.
So it's a high-risk, high-reward situation.
Very high risk, potentially very high reward.
And that's something that anyone thinking about investing in precision
Yeah,
really needs to understand.
needs to understand. This isn't a passive investment.
No.
You have to stay informed. You have to track the company's progress
Right.
and be prepared for some ups and downs along the way.
It's almost like sailing a ship
Sailing a ship.
through uncharted waters.
I like that.
You need a good captain, a sturdy ship, and a reliable map,
Right.
but you also have to be prepared for storms.
You do, you do.
Yeah.
But with the right preparation and the right mindset,
Yeah.
navigating those risks could lead to some pretty incredible rewards.
Incredible.
Imagine a world where we can cure diseases that were once thought to be incurable.
Yeah.
We could fix genetic errors,
Wow.
eliminate chronic infections.
That's the promise.
That's the promise of gene editing.
And precision is right there at the forefront.
They are leading the charge.
Let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
For our listeners who are thinking, this all sounds amazing,
Right.
but how do I approach this from an investment standpoint?
Yeah, how do you make sense of it all?
What are some key questions they should be asking themselves?
All right, well, here are a few.
Okay.
First, do you believe in the long-term potential of gene editing as a field?
Right.
It's still relatively young.
It is.
We're still learning a lot.
And the second question,
How much risk are you comfortable with?
risk tolerance.
Risk tolerance, exactly. Biotech investments are inherently volatile.
Yeah,
There's always a chance that things won't go as planned.
of course.
And then finally, does Precision BioSciences, their RCUS platform, the specific areas they're focused on,
Yeah.
do those align with your personal investment philosophy?
With your goals.
With your goals, yeah.
I would also add that doing your own research is absolutely crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't just take what we're saying at face value.
Yeah, no.
Dig deeper.
No. Dig deeper.
Look at the company's filings.
Read those analyst reports.
Stay up to date on the news and developments.
Talk to other investors. Get their perspectives.
The more informed you are,
Yeah.
the better decisions you can make.
I couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power,
Knowledge is power,
especially when it comes to investing.
especially when it comes to investing. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We've gone deep.
We've explored Precision's origins, their unique gene editing platform,
Their diverse pipeline,
their partnerships, their financials.
competitive landscape.
We even touched on the potential impact of this technology on the world.
We really have covered it all.
But I think it all comes down to one fundamental question.
Okay, what's that?
What could the impact of this technology be on the future of medicine?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's one that's impossible to answer definitively right now.
Right.
But if Precision BioSciences, or any other company working in this space,
Right.
can successfully develop and bring these therapies to market,
Yeah.
the implications are enormous.
They're huge.
We could be on the cusp of a new era in medicine,
A new era.
where diseases that were once considered incurable are no longer a threat.
It's a powerful thought.
It is a powerful thought.
And I think it's important to remember that we all have a role to play in shaping that future.
We do.
Whether you're a scientist, an investor, a policymaker, or just someone who's curious about the world.
Just curious.
Staying informed and engaging in these conversations is crucial.
I completely agree.
The more we understand about these new technologies,
Yeah,
the better equipped we'll be to use them for the benefit of all.
for the benefit of all. Well said.
So we've laid out the facts, we've explored the potential, And we've considered those big questions.
The big questions.
Now we want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question
Okay.
to consider as you continue to learn about precision biosciences and the world of gene editing.
All right, hit me with it.
If precision biosciences is successful in developing even just one of these groundbreaking therapies,
Just one.
what kind of impact could that have on the world, on the future of medicine, and on people's lives?
Wow. That is a powerful question.
It is.
It really makes you think about the possibilities.
It does.
And I think that's a great place to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
We've given our listeners a lot to think about,
A lot to think about.
but hopefully we've piqued their curiosity and inspired them to continue exploring.
To continue exploring, remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
The beginning.
We encourage everyone to keep digging deeper into precision biosciences and this incredible field of gene editing. Who knows? You might even stumble upon the next big breakthrough yourself.
You never know.
We'll be back after a short break to talk about some of the risks associated with investing in precision biosciences. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've spent this episode exploring the world of precision biosciences,
Precision biosciences.
their amazing gene editing technology.
The potential is incredible.
But before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
really important to talk about the other side of the coin,
The risks.
the risks involved.
Right.
Investing in any biotech company,
Especially one like precision.
especially one like Precision.
Still in those early stages.
Yeah,
It carries some inherent risks.
it's a high-stakes game.
It is.
And understanding those risks
Yeah.
is just as important as recognizing those potential rewards.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's unpack those risks.
Let's unpack them.
What would you say is the biggest risk for a company like Precision?
I think the most obvious one is the inherent uncertainty of clinical trials.
Clinical trials?
Even if a therapy shows a lot of promise in the lab,
Right.
there's no guarantee that it will work the same way in humans.
So you can have something that looks amazing
Looks great in the lab.
in a very controlled setting,
Right.
but then you move into a clinical trial
Yeah.
with real patients.
Real people, yeah.
Things can be very different.
Things can be very different. And even if a therapy does prove to be effective in
Yeah,
humans,
Right.
there's always the risk of unforeseen side effects.
Side effects.
Safety is paramount.
Of course.
Any serious adverse events
Yeah,
can bring a clinical trial to a screeching halt.
absolutely.
And that can have a huge impact on a company's stock price.
Yeah, so investors need to be aware that these clinical trials,
Right.
they can be unpredictable,
They can be unpredictable.
and that setbacks are always a possibility.
And always a possibility.
What about the regulatory process?
Oh, the regulatory process.
That seems like it could be a major hurdle.
Absolutely. The FDA, they have very rigorous standards
Right.
for approving new therapies.
Rightfully so.
And for good reason.
Patient safety?
Patient safety. But the process of navigating that regulatory maze,
Right.
it can be long, it can be complex, it can be expensive.
And even after all that,
Right.
no guarantee of approval. So even if everything looks great in the clinical trials,
Yeah.
getting it approved and actually available to patients,
It's a whole other challenge.
a whole other beast.
It is. And then there's the competitive landscape to consider.
The competitive landscape
Gene editing space, it's getting crowded.
is getting crowded,
Lots of companies out there
vying for market share.
vying for a piece of the pie.
Precision's going to need to show that ARCUS
Yeah.
has a real distinct advantage
A distinct advantage.
over the competition.
Right. It's not enough to just have a good technology. They need to be able to demonstrate that it's better,
Better, safer
safer, more cost-effective.
than what others are developing.
Exactly.
And then, of course, we can't overlook the financial risks.
Financial risks.
Biotech companies,
Notorious for needing lots of cash,
they need a lot of cash, especially if
particularly those that don't have a product on the market yet.
they're investing heavily in R&D,
R&D.
running those clinical trials, building up their infrastructure.
All of that costs money.
It costs a lot of money.
Precision's done a pretty good job so far
They add
of raising capital,
yeah.
but they're likely going to need to raise more funds in the future.
And that can lead to dilution for existing shareholders,
So investors need to be prepared for that.
that their ownership stake
Yeah.
could shrink a little bit.
It could shrink a little bit as the company grows and raises more capital.
So to sum it all up,
To sum it up.
investing in precision biosciences
Yeah.
is really a bet on the future.
A bet on the future. That's a good way to put it.
A future where gene editing could have a profound impact on medicine.
It can change everything.
But it's essential to understand that it's a bet that comes with significant risks.
Significant risks.
And as we've discussed,
Right.
Those risks need to be carefully weighed against the potential rewards.
Now, I don't want to give the impression that we're trying to discourage anyone
No, not at all.
from investing in precision biosciences.
We think this company
Yeah.
and the field of gene editing
It's so exciting.
Are incredibly exciting.
But we believe in providing our listeners
Transparency
transparency, a clear-eyed assessment,
of both the risks
the risks.
and the potential rewards.
Exactly.
So if you're thinking about investing in Precision BioSciences,
Or really any biotech company,
do your homework.
do your homework,
Don't just rely on headlines or
Right.
what you hear from others.
dig into the company's filings, read those analyst reports,
Really make sure you understand the science.
the science behind the technology,
Talk to other investors.
different perspectives.
And maybe the most important thing
What's that?
is invest only what you can afford to lose.
That's key.
Because, as we've said,
There are no guarantees.
there are no guarantees.
But for those who are willing to take on that risk,
Yeah,
the potential rewards could be truly transformative.
transformative.
Imagine a world
Yeah.
where we can cure genetic diseases,
Wow.
wipe out chronic infections,
Yeah.
and even enhance human capabilities.
That's the promise.
That's the promise of gene editing.
Precision is one of those companies on the front line
On the front lines,
of making that vision a reality.
it's a vision that inspires us too.
As we conclude our deep dive into Precision BioSciences,
Precision biosciences.
we hope you've learned something new,
Something new.
gained a fresh perspective,
A new perspective.
and maybe even been inspired to explore this amazing field of gene editing further.
It's an amazing field.
Remember,
Remember.
the future of medicine is being written right before our eyes.
Right before our eyes.
And we're all part of this journey.
We're all in this together.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.
The deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious
Stay curious.
and never stop asking questions.
Never stop asking questions.